Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of hashtag Blind Talk. We're excited to be back with you after a week's long break, and I'm here with my co-host, TJ. Hello.
Hey.
And our special guest, Madeline Stafford. Hi, Madeline.
Hi.
So today we're going to talk to Madeline about her kind of life and her journey, and we're going to interact with Madeline about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about eye irritation, something we all kind of put up with in different forms, and how enjoyable it is to be able to have your eyes dilated, and what goes along with having that done to us, and different things like that. So we'll just get started. And Madeline, love for you to tell the audience a little bit about you and your journey in Utah.
Yeah. I am Madeline and I am 30. And so I feel like I've lived a long life to put my life into a little nutshell. But um, I was born in Illinois and moved to Utah when I was about 7 years old. So I'm pretty much a Utahn. And I grew up and had a pretty typical life. I was born with a vision impairment, and my family didn't really know that I was visually impaired until I was about 2, and it was my aunt that noticed every time that I would watch TV. I would go really close to the television where my nose was touching the TV, and I would bump into walls a lot. And so I got these really beautiful red, thick glasses that just imagine in the 90s.
Good styling, right?
Yep, just those red glasses, just definitely not my color. And really ringlet curly hair, so it just looked great.
Right. We need some photos at a later time.
Yes, very 90s of me.
So basically, you didn't see so much an eye specialist from the get-go. It was a little bit later when
Yeah.
they kind of discovered that there was some challenges.
Yeah, and like way, way later, I would say my journey was the majority of my life until just the past couple of years. My dad passed away at a very young age. I was only 5, and
Right.
my mom was left with 2 girls, and we were living in Ohio, just moved there for 2 weeks for my dad's job.
Wow.
Um, and he passed away tragically on the job. And so we had to pack back up and move to Utah. That's where my mom's family is
Right.
from. So we moved here, and I would say we knew I had, quote, vision problems, but I don't think anyone knew the significance until, I wouldn't even say anyone realized the significance, including myself, because we were living in such trauma for
Yeah.
so
Of
long.
course. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
Uh,
that those things sometimes don't get caught, right? And we
yeah.
hear about families all the time where that doesn't happen, and kids don't get sometimes diagnosed until they're in their teens,
Yeah.
early teens, and so you've lost a lot of time then to be able to adjust, right? So
Yep.
from your original diagnosis, 7 and 8, like what was the kind of journey for you then? What kind of eye condition were you diagnosed with?
Yeah, I was overall undiagnosed. On my eye report, and I am a nerd, so I've gone back and looked in everything, and my old IEPs and everything. It would say overall undiagnosed and high myopia.
Right.
So for those that understand, for nearsightedness, it's normal to be like under like a -6. And then it goes into high myopic after that. And I'm a -22.5. So pretty high myopic.
Yep.
Um,
So under the baseline for sure.
yeah, doing well here.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, for all until I was 20 6, 27, I was just labeled high myoptic, and then I accumulated in like ninth grade and a couple of other really impactful years of my life, accumulated like glaucoma, and then was diagnosed with uveitis, which is inflammation of the eyes.
Yeah,
Um, and then when I was 26, overall diagnosed with no block syndrome, which is a progressive vision loss. And I had to fight for that myself, which is an interesting
right.
story in itself.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting, that we've come so far, but yet we still have so much to go as far
Yeah.
as eye disease goes, and things like cataracts are now, just a general operation where you don't even have to go under. Where
Yeah.
I think, in
Crazy.
yeah, like 2001 when I had my surgery, to get a bit of vision back, where I was nearly completely blind. Um, it was like they put you under, full anesthetic. I remember waking up in the cataract surgery where they were sewing the eye back on, sewing the lens back onto the eye, and I'm like, "Am I supposed to be
Wow.
awake?" It's
Yeah.
a bit of
Don't
a
want to be
challenge,
here.
right? To TJ, where now she's in clinical trials, and they're looking at the gene, and so I think it's
Right.
really interesting. We're kind of in that midpoint where there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of hope, but there's also a lot of experimentation. And
Yeah.
like you just said, it was only a few years ago that you were actually fully diagnosed to some degree.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that people go and see their eye specialist and find a good eye specialist,
Yeah.
not just like an ophthalmologist or a optometrist to be able to talk to about their vision. One, so they can understand it, but two, if need be, getting a second or third opinion about what that is. Right? Can you talk about that journey?
Yeah, I would say I'm huge on that of finding someone that you trust. I would say I have a lot of medical trauma from having eye specialists that were always nice, but would just dismiss me. And if you go and look, which I have, like I said, go back and look in my chart, a lot of my issues that I had should not have been missed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's tragic. Before I even went to Australia with you, Murray, that's when I had a really significant retinal detachment just like weeks before that.
Right.
And
So playing
um,
goalball probably isn't a great idea
yeah,
then if you've got a retinal detachment, right?
yep.
You kind
I
of need to
had,
be aware of that.
yep. That's why I had to stop a year later because I kept having retinal detachments and it was a big decision for me because that was a part of my life. That's how I learned to fight for myself, my accommodations, my eye like issues I was having by seeing others in the blind community tell me their stories and realizing that's how I started piecing together. And I remember distinctly after Australia coming back and demanding for different eye care professionals. And that just started my journey. I was still undiagnosed then. And it's really important because eye care professionals, have a time limit where they can talk to you and they just want a Band-Aid fix. And I was in college suffering and like eye wise and just accommodation wise.
Yeah, well, that was
And
2016, right? When
yeah,
you were in Australia.
yep,
And so, I've known Madeline for quite a long time. Madeline was part of the goalball community in Utah, and it was a really thriving community in Utah.
yeah,
They had a really great program and really strong leaders there through the schools. And so we kind of knew each other for quite a while before that. And, I think it's really a great story to tell that early on, having the right eye specialist and having the right eye care through
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis is so important because that talks about your next steps. And TJ, it'd be great, for you to just tell or retell that part of your story because I think um, it's important to be able to understand the types of things you should be asking your eye specialist.
hmm,
So, when
Mm-hmm.
you were originally diagnosed from your just regular checkup, what was the status then that you did to be able to understand more about it?
Well, for me, I was completely one caught off guard. Had no idea. Went in for a routine eye exam and learned that I, was going blind. But another thing was I was a medical professional and had never ever heard of this before.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be anything that I would learn about. It's not something that I would routinely see in the hospital. So why would I really know about it, right?
Sure.
Of course, if I had a vision impaired patient, I knew how to care for them, and what they needed from me as a provider.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I was clueless. So I began researching for myself as well and digging and trying to see. And at that time, the retina specialist that I saw upon diagnosis, that my regular eye doctor had sent me to the very same day to confirm what he was seeing, he was more of a coddling, I'm so sorry, there's nothing we can do. Here's my personal number should you need me. But really, there's not anything I can offer you and nothing I can do. And that didn't sit well with me. I mean, of course, it felt good for someone to say, I hate that this is happening for you. And yes, it is what's going on, and, that sort of thing. But I needed more.
Yeah.
I needed information. I needed to know if there were clinical trials. I needed to know if there was a database where we registered in, like all the things. And each visit that I had with him, it was more along the lines of, yes, it's progressing. I'm so sorry. And that
Yeah.
was pretty much, how it
So they
went.
didn't really
And
explain the condition
no,
and what RP does
Oh,
and how it works.
no,
Right.
no.
So
really?
those things are so important. And, I work a lot, and Madeline will as well, work a lot with families and young kids. And so many kids don't understand their eye condition at an early age. And the benefits of understanding versus not understanding are
Yeah.
dramatically different.
Yeah.
And for the families as well. And, it's something that, like you said, people put on the shelf and say, okay, we just deal with it, whatever it is, right? But actually understanding how you see your visual acuity, your field of vision.
Education is power.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And so,
Yes.
going back to your story, Mad, can you tell us a little bit about how that evolved, from an 8-year-old and,
Yeah.
schooling obviously must
Yeah.
have been a big factor. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. School is a big part of my story. I suffered. I was someone that did not understand my own visual impairment. And so I kept pushing away people that were, quote, trying to help me. I don't remember until middle school people really trying to help me, but I didn't learn how to read until I was in sixth grade. And
Mm.
Right.
I
Because how could you say
graduated.
the words, right?
Yep. And when I graduated high school, I was still on probably a second grade reading level.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I started piecing together by going to blind camps and realizing what other people had and I didn't. And it was shocking for me to realize. And so for me, school was hard. I just wanted to be, quote, normal. And that's what I fought for the entirety until I went to high school was to be normal in every aspect. And not realizing what other people had and I didn't.
Yeah.
And not having support on the home end and really not having support on the school end just made this perfect storm. It was no one's fault, but it was everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But
Right.
luckily, I had a very supportive Utah community, which I know a lot of people don't have. But I think that's where I started developing my like drive and perseverance and awareness was seeing what other people had and I didn't. And I started wondering, well, she's visually impaired or she's blind or he's blind. Why can they do this and I can't?
Sure.
And it took me a really long time to start realizing what advocating really meant. I heard the word very young, but school was really hard and that it hit really hard also in college.
So
So
going back,
yeah,
were you in mainstream schooling, or
yes,
okay, so were you in mainstream schooling throughout high school?
yes.
Okay. So you're battling, to be able to see, to be able to read. I mean,
Hmm.
from my own personal viewpoint, being legally blind since birth, like reading's always the hardest thing, right?
Yeah,
And did you have books that you tried to just read and get through, or did you have like an audible book type situation where you
yeah.
had textbooks transferred?
For me, I think first of all, I think teachers felt bad for me. So I was passed all the way through high
Yeah,
school, and I would even say a little bit in college.
yeah.
But
Isn't
as
that
for
like the worst thing though, to be honest, because then it puts you in a false
Exactly.
sense of
yeah.
where you
Oh,
are.
and as a teacher now, I'm like, what were you doing? Like,
Right,
but my books, I'm holding my hands up, were like bigger than my entire body when I was
right.
young. I remember being so little and short, and my books were bigger than me, but I
Yeah,
still couldn't read the print. And so
right,
schools didn't know what to do with me because they, in their mind, accommodated me by giving me the book larger than my body
right.
that I was trying to get close and I couldn't even get close enough because the book was so stiff that I couldn't
Ah,
get close enough to read it. And they would give me a little dome magnifier
Yeah,
that did not work for me in the slightest. I cringe. I don't even give it to the students I have now. Some students
right.
love them, but
I
it's
think
my
in
last
Australia we
pick.
used to call those visualettes, and they're like that big thick dome that you like
Yes.
run across the paper.
Oh,
I don't know how many people used to use a visualette or what the equivalent was here in the
no.
States, but it wasn't very effective. You had to have very good
No.
light because there was no light in it, and
Yes.
the actual piece of equipment was such that if your head's over it to be able to read from it, then you're actually cutting out all the light. So
Yeah.
a light.
it
It was
wasn't
so
very good. Like now
distorted.
they've got the electronic readers with the black backgrounds and the light.
Yeah.
It's a lot different to how it
And
used to
when
be.
your retinas are dying,
Right.
like you need all the
Yeah,
light.
right.
So the
Exactly.
shadow of your head even made it worse.
So
So,
you went all the way through with just battling. Did you have a teacher for the visually impaired or a TVI in high school?
uh-huh. So I actually had a TVI from I don't remember kindergarten, but from first grade all the way, I
Right.
had a TVI and I it switched every year. So I don't not to say anything bad about anyone, but as a TVI myself now,
Yeah.
it's hard to say like how did you not see the signs? How did you not advocate for
Right.
me?
You're kind of
Um,
in that transition, I feel like, where a TVI was to, get the books changed into large print or audio,
mhm,
and they were very like an office type person rather than
yeah,
now where the TVI is more integrated into a student's life, and understanding that part of it and the general living skills and other components where before it never used to be like that. I mean, I had TVIs in primary and high school as well, and my TVIs were, taught me how to type and sent me in to learn Braille and, do
yeah,
all these things that orientation, mobility, those kinds of things. But I mean, they weren't learning assessment people,
yeah,
and I think like that's the challenge. And obviously you're a smart young lady. Now you're a teacher yourself, and
mhm.
you got through college. Tell us about that transition of deciding to become a teacher and what was entailed in that.
Yeah, I think for a lot of individuals that are blind and visually impaired, when you don't really know what's out there in the world, a lot of individuals are drawn towards being a TBI because either they had a great experience or they had a horrible experience.
Right,
For me, I think that started my initial thought. But if you know me in my personal life, I am such an educational nerd. I love education. I love to fix problems. I love to help children. At a very young age, I love to babysit. I love everything about like kids and education.
yeah.
So I like to say, even if I wasn't visually impaired, I would have found my way to
Still
education.
education.
Yeah, I
Matt,
love it
yeah, Maddie's a
so
very
much.
caring individual. You've always been that way, very kind heart, and really like concerned for others. And so I would assume that that works very well for you in
Yeah.
that, probably too well most of the time.
Yes is the answer to that. I think a big part of it too is I love curriculum and I love I the normal teaching stuff. Like if I were to be a classroom teacher, which I was for 5 years, I really love the classroom management piece of it and how to help kids thrive and help families. It was really big for me to connect families to the child's education
Yeah,
because, like I said, I didn't have it. So
yeah,
it I knew I wanted to be a teacher in high school, and so I went straight into college wanting to be a TBI, telling everyone that's what I wanted to be.
Yep.
Surprised I made it out, to be honest, with what I dealt with, but
And did you go
I
to
yeah.
Colorado for masters?
Yes, I did. My bachelor's is at the University of Utah, and my master's is at both the University of Utah and Northern Colorado University.
Yeah. So, for those who aren't aware, the master's program for TVI and orientation mobility are in specialized programs usually.
Yeah.
And at the moment, actually, there is a grant that is available because there's such a lack of
Yeah.
teachers for the visually impaired and orientation and mobility instructors. And so,
Yeah.
if anybody out there is listening and they have a real passion for working with people with blindness, now is a great time to look at getting a master's degree. And in some
Yeah.
programs, it's only a year to get your master's and it's fully paid for.
Oh,
And
wow.
so reach
It's
out
a great
to
program.
those universities. I know that in our area, obviously Colorado and Portland State have programs in Oregon, and then Louisiana has a program. I think Michigan might have a program, and then there's some
Yeah.
on the East Coast as well. But it's a great time to look at being a TVI or an O&M instructor because
Mhm.
you
Or
have the
both.
financial, stuff to go with that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it's interesting to hear us talk, Madeline, about we're surrounded by blindness and surrounded by people with blindness to aspects with, your goal ball and what you
Yeah.
wanted to do, and obviously myself with cricket and goal ball and just going to blind camps as an example when we were
Yeah.
young, as a teen, and then TJ's experience of not having anybody with blindness around her, kind of apart
Mhm.
from maybe her neighbor, which is caused because of diabetes. But TJ, just hearing Madeline's story and hearing how Madeline kind of understood more about her blindness, I'd love to unpack that with you because it's the complete opposite, right? You don't have,
Correct.
and now you're very involved, obviously, in the community on
Mhm.
TikTok, and what that does, and begins conversations. But
Mhm.
how's that kind of rationalized itself for you, not having anybody to be around or not understanding like a whole bunch of looking at others and talking to others on a day-to-day basis about what they do and what they can see?
For me, it has opened up a whole new world for me that I am so thankful for because I have felt very isolated in my journey. And it's not anybody's fault, but my eye doctor only has two retinitis pigmentosa patients. It's not something that they see all the time. We
Yeah.
don't have a community around here of vision impaired, people that my O&M trainer had to come to my house, to do
Yep.
my training here. It's just it's surrounding. So I felt very isolated for a long time. I was processing the diagnosis, the what ifs, the losing my career or having to give up my career, bedside, all those things. And here I was not even sure. I'm like, is this even a real thing? Like, I see that people have it online, but I don't know any of these people, So it didn't make it, I wasn't able to be personable with people to say, you know what? I do that very same thing. With retinitis pigmentosa, if I don't have enough light, I can't see anything. But then you throw a bunch of light at me and it also hurts. And there are days when it's cloudy and I can't see, or days when it's too sunny and it's too blinding to see. And I have found that it's not just me. It's a real, this is how this disease process works. And it's what happens to everyone else pretty
Yep.
much. Even though we all see the world differently, we all have common things, that we're like, oh yeah, I do have that, and that is classic. And I was listening. Mandy earlier on TikTok had posted one of her makeup videos and was discussing the lighting situation and the magnifying mirror, and things like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I know all about that. So it's so comforting to know people
Yeah.
that are having the same issues, because for me, I just didn't. I don't know anyone. I still don't know personally anyone in my life around here that has retinitis pigmentosa. My next door neighbor, like you touched on, he's blind. And I've kind of navigated that journey with him, helping him, because I kind of started it first, and then he became vision impaired. So I've kind of helped him to navigate it as well. But aside from that, I just really don't know anyone. So finding your community of people, it's really helpful, and I'm so thankful for them. And I also find, like Murray was saying, with the parents and not knowing how to navigate it and needing some guidance with that sort of thing. I've not had experience with that. Both of my parents also are no longer here. So I didn't have, but I was diagnosed later in life. Hindsight, there were things at a younger age that were there. But not knowing until later in life, my daughter does not have it. So I've not navigated that, and connecting with other people who are parenting children that have vision loss, and they get information from me sharing what I'm doing and kind of how I've navigated it. I love that it reaches those people as well. And I'm thankful that there are people who can teach those children who are actually vision impaired themselves, because my O&M trainer is fully sighted. I felt like, I really didn't get everything out of it that I should had.
Yeah.
If that person had been vision impaired as well.
Such a different story, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's great that we have these different examples to be able to talk about, because I think just one of the challenges when we were teenagers, Mads, is that we sometimes felt, and both being in mainstream schools, you do feel very isolated to what you've gone through, TJ. And then when you would go to summer camp and meet other kids that were blind and have low vision, just being in an environment where you didn't have to guard yourself. We kind of took our mask off a little bit. And
it was the Hannah Montana life. You had
right.
two different worlds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is.
Different lives.
We had Mandy on 2 weeks ago, and Mandy was talking about this documentary on Netflix called Crip Camp. And I would highly recommend people to go and watch that. I actually couldn't sleep the other night with my surgery recovery and decided I'd whack that on. And man, it is enlightening about how things used to be. And even to the point where, I was a teenager in the 80s going to these summer camps and just meeting all these people. And I still talk to so many people, 30 years later, 40 years later now, of being in that environment and all of the fun that we used to have. And, we just used to be kids, and it was great to be able to just let down your guard. But, for you, TJ, like, it must be difficult, at least for, your daughter and your husband, to really get a handle on, okay, what this is, because for so long you were driving, you were living a fairly normal life that was different from these vision loss and these vision challenges. And I'm interested in how, your family adjusted to you and how you adjusted to your family, not really taking into consideration probably that your vision had changed as much as it had initially, especially, and when you started to lose vision, what that was like.
Yeah. Of course, my support has been outstanding. Never wavered. Whatever you need, we will do, that sort of thing. But I will say there is always, I call it the sighted world versus the non-sighted world, where if you don't live it, you don't know it, right? So we tend to forget things like, oh, yes, I left the dishwasher open. Well, what's going to happen when Tammy comes in the kitchen and the dishwasher is left open?
That knee's
I'm
going to get
run
a beating
into
again.
Yes. It's just things like that. So I had to learn, because I'm so independent, always have been and continue to be. And I think my husband and my child both know we're not going to help mom unless she asks for help, because she would rather do it on her own. And that's just how that's just how I am. I was made that way.
Yep.
But I had to learn to let them help me on certain things. And I also had to learn to make it known to them what I needed from them. Like, I need you to make sure that the cabinets are closed when you're done. I need you to make sure that the dishwasher, I appreciate you loading the dishwasher and unloading the dishwasher, but close it first.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I needed to learn to speak up because I felt
Mm.
like if I didn't, they couldn't fix what they didn't know. And so for
Right.
me, I was trying to explain to them the things that I needed and how I saw. Even though I knew that they could not relate. I know that they didn't know how I felt. And they would ask, can you see that over there? And from them, I didn't take it as a daily test to
Yeah.
see if, how my vision
They were
was.
just trying to understand, right?
They were trying to understand.
Yeah.
And so I found that I had to do a lot of educating, not only for myself, but then I had to project that onto my family so that they would know how best to accommodate me. And so now it is second nature. I go shopping and with Peyton, she and Kayla will come and get me and take me shopping, and they both know that when we get, if I'm not out with my O&M cane, Mom, there's, step up right here. There's
Yeah.
a step here. There's 4 steps there. We go into a dark restaurant to eat, and they gently kind of, allow me to grab a hold of them to follow and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they're acutely aware of what I need, and over time it becomes easier for those things to be remembered by them.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, it's great that you've got that support and understanding now. And
For
like
sure.
Madeline, for you, I just talked about summer camp a little bit, but we used to go canoeing, we used to go horseback riding, all these fun things. I remember going to a water park one day and doing slides. And so it was
Mhm.
freeing to be with other kids with blindness and low vision who
Yeah.
would go and do that. And then the socialization aspects, of course. How was that for you? What age did you start playing goalball?
So I was fortunate here in Utah. We have the Utah Foundation for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and the two creators of Utah Foundation for the Blind were Tony Jepson and Jelaine Ingberg. And Tony, I was within his school district, and so I was introduced to it. Hated it, mind you. Introduced to it when I was probably like 7. Hated it, hated it, hated it until I was on the Utah like girls team in 7th grade and still hated it until my first year at nationals. And then, but it wasn't really a choice for me. I didn't have a father, and so Tony would pick me up, he would drop me off. My mom was just really not around. And
Yeah.
so he would pick me up, he would drop me off, he would make me go to camps. I hated it because it was really hard to do like a blind thing. I would
Yeah,
go,
well, it's confronting, right? You didn't know
yeah.
your diagnosis. You're in a mainstream school.
And then you go
You're
back to school
struggling.
and I'm like, what
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to share my
right. You're
life
kind of
with,
caught in that midstream of
yeah,
being
it
part of the
was,
blind community and being
yeah,
part of the
Mhm.
sighted community to what TJ just talked about, right?
yeah. It was two different lives when I was at the, like my mainstream school. I didn't want to talk about my visual impairment. I didn't want anyone to know. Clearly, I think everyone knew, but no one said anything.
Right.
And
It's
then
like
in
don't
the
ask, don't tell, right?
Yep. And then when I was at blind camp, it was just so interesting because it was the most amazing opportunities I've ever had in my life. But you also feel not only freeing there, but in some ways you also feel lonely
Yeah.
because for someone like me who was undiagnosed, okay, well, I know everyone here has albinism and RP and all of these, and I just never fit
You
into
had
the,
and didn't have it. Hmm.
yeah. And so I
Yeah.
felt so isolated there in some ways, but the opportunities I would never give. I slept on so many floors of schools for like overnight camps, and sounds like so dumb, but they were so fun. And
Yeah.
just horseback riding, camping, things that I would have not experienced as
Yeah.
a
Hmm.
child if I did not go. And the blind community is definitely different now. I think the world is different now.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids don't really go to these as much anymore,
Yeah.
but
And that's a shame, really, I think,
it is.
because, I do a lot of workshops, obviously, with teens.
Yeah.
And when they get together, they just fit, and the thing
Yeah.
that we hear all the time in feedback is, I didn't know this existed and I feel
Yeah.
part of something, and I don't have to
Right.
pretend. I don't have to pretend that I can't see, and that's what
Mhm.
kids and teenagers do, but also adults do as well. We all
Yeah.
talk about different ways we mask and hide, in the
Mhm.
everyday life of
Oh, yeah.
how difficult life can be. And, like just simple things, right? Like I lost my television remote the other day and I was looking
Oh,
for it for probably 20 minutes. Can't stand up, can't walk at the moment, just fumbling around, getting frustrated, like, oh, really? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. I can't find my remote. I don't want to wake my wife up to go and find it for me.
yeah.
What am I going to do here? And, it's just simple, stupid things that frustrate you and make
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
angry about your blindness every day that
Mhm.
manifest itself in ways that people with vision will never be able to understand. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Mhm.
like that ability to be able to share those stupid things that frustrate you is healthy, right?
In a
It has,
challenging way, like when
yeah,
they put you on a ropes course and
right. Good luck.
60 feet in the
Off you go.
air with another blind camper,
Right. Sink or
go
swim.
from one end to the other, guys. Like,
Yeah. But
make it
like I
work.
know Tony and Lainey so well and over
Yeah.
the years, and you couldn't have had two better mentors. They
Oh,
are that perfect mix of caring and supportive, but
yes.
also like, here you go
Oh,
do it.
oh yeah.
And I think,
Guys, I was a brat. Like they had to like shape me into and support me and love me. But like, and not only just goal ball, but before, like I said, I had glasses. Did not realize that my glasses didn't work for me.
yeah,
And so I would purposely go to the top of the monkey bars and break my glasses in half. So like, if no one can see me breaking them, right? Like
right,
I
right.
would
No
break
one's
them and
around.
fall down and say like, "Oh, I fell on top of my glasses." But things like Tony and Jelaine saying, "No, I saw you break them.
Right.
I saw you
That's,
do this." It was like, as a kid, I'm like, wow, I was caught. But
yeah,
also, what a way to help someone understand that
Yeah.
the world can to see you and love you and support you. And even though you are not one, I would go under my desk and scream when my TBI would try to pull me out. I don't want to be different. And my TBI saying, Madeline, you're making yourself look different by
right. This
screaming.
isn't helping at the moment.
Yeah, but like the awareness of everyone's looking at you right now because we can't see individuals looking at us, but
Yeah,
Tony and Jelaine and others would point out, like, I can see you doing that. I
right.
can see, like, stop. Like, that's not appropriate. And as a kid, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're so mean. And I would cry. I'm such a sensitive person. But then nowadays, I'm like, holy crap, the way that they pointed things out in such an appropriate way
Yeah.
was
Right.
so needed.
Kind of
Mhm.
minding you to that middle ground where you have to
Yeah.
face the harsh reality of, okay, it's time to sink or swim here, right? I need to be
Yep.
able to put my big girl pants on
Yep.
and battle through this. I'm
Go through
interested
an
in
Exactly.
airport and find your way to the airplane before it
exactly,
leaves.
right? Yeah. Here's a gold ball tournament. So
Yep.
we'll see you on the
Gonna
plane.
hit you in the face. Hope you block
Right.
it.
I find it so hard to just think of you in that light, Mads, because you've always been such a kind and like nice person. I just can't even imagine you like throwing
Oh,
tantrums and things.
oh, I was. I was a little alien. I just didn't know. I didn't have the support at school. I didn't have it at home, and I wanted to be like everyone else and did not
Everyone else.
realize I wasn't. And so
Mhm.
when people tried to make me different, I thought you were the devil. Like, why are you trying to make this worse on me? I'm just trying to sit here when everyone's being popcorn read together out loud to the whole class. I
Mhm.
didn't want to look different. And when I started realizing it at blind camps that I was different in a place that I felt safe, that's when I was like, oh, watch the fire be burnt under me and watch me go from not reading to reading. And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't get orientation mobility services until I was a senior and
What was
watch
the what
me.
was the light switch that
Oh,
went off? Like what was the thing that made you
yeah,
start to come to reality?
I tell like this story a lot. When we here in Utah, we would take a giant bus to California to the Junior Blind Olympics every year. And I used to go the very beginning when it started, you could be 6, and then later they made you go when you were 8 and then later 10. But I got to go when I was 6. So I went to the Junior Blind Olympics every single year for multiple days. We did not go to California for the Blind Olympics. We definitely went to be with our friends, go to the beach, go to Six Flags, socialize. Never slept. It was amazing. And I remember distinctly being in middle school and sitting at the back of the bus with all my friends, all my blind friends, all my goalball friends. The goalball team would always sit together at the back of the bus. And I remember just hearing, one of my friends say, "Well, I'm taking honors classes next year and I'm in trigonometry," and just describing the classes they were in and like, what the heck is wrong with me? And I was already starting to figure it out. The year before my first year of middle school, I was in eighth grade then. I was already starting to put the puzzle pieces together by being in middle school. I think the transition to middle school was the big wow, something's different. And then every year after that, but in eighth grade on that bus, I heard that and I went from every seat, and there's like 60 seats on this bus, from the back to the front, asking everyone who their TVI was, who their O&M was, what they were reading, what classes they were in, all the way to the front of the bus. And the person sitting at the front of the bus was the director of the Utah schools for the deaf and blind back then. And I remember once I got to the front of the bus, I was bawling and saying, like, why don't I have this? What's wrong with me? Why is everybody else on this bus thriving
Yeah.
and I'm
Mhm.
surviving? And
Mhm.
the next year is when I started having insane retinal detachments, like for the first time. Um, but that I remember saying, "What is wrong with me?" And I was um in a district where Tony was, but they split the next year. And so I no longer had all the TBIs that I had for and went through for my whole entire education. And then now they were contracting with the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. So in Utah, you can either be with the Utah Schools for the Blind outreach team or
Hmm.
you can be with your district team, and the
Right.
districts make those decisions. So when my district split in half, I was no longer in the district team. All I knew growing up, and I was now with USDB and Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And that's when they paired me with a TBI that was creating the Braille 2 curriculum. And I still like hated it, but it was the first time that I realized she started pointing out to me, and I think developmentally I think I could handle this now, and so it was
Yeah.
starting to click, like, you can't even read these three-letter words, like that's a problem.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
in Braille, in print, in anything, I couldn't spell them, nothing. And I still did not like her, but I remember she pointed out the gaps to me for the first time, and it was the first TVI that I could remember that did that.
Challenged you, right? And didn't just
Yeah.
Yeah.
accept that
It's
you
like,
were just blind and were going to pass.
yeah,
Actually
I'm like,
challenged you to
wow.
do better. Yeah.
And which was so cool. And I started having all these vision changes and all these uveitis symptoms that what is going on? Why are my eyes red all day? And what's the problem? And that stretched throughout the next couple of years in high school, but the thing that clicked for me was I think I was starting to see it in middle school and then asking my blind peer, what are you doing and why do I not get that?
Yeah.
And I was traveling with Goalball weekly and going all over the country and just seeing the gaps when we're traveling. And so I just slowly started piecing things together, and I would say become going to blind camps and becoming an advocate. And I started having blind adults starting to believe in me and saying, like, yeah, that's a problem, you need this, and
Yeah.
starting fighting alongside me. But I still
Mhm.
wasn't ready completely to embrace it all, and so I wanted it, they wanted it for me, but I would still kind of aggressively fight it at the same time.
Right, because you
Uh,
still want it to be normal, right? Quote,
yeah, and that's
quote.
all I knew. And I'm
Right.
like, you want me to go to this blind center and put a blindfold on and be taught by other blind individuals and feel safe? Like,
Right.
I don't,
Overflow.
yeah, like my only blindfold experience was goal ball.
Right.
So to
Isn't it
then,
funny though? And I was talking to someone about
oh,
training under blindfold the other day, and I still don't believe in it, to be honest with you. I still think we should be using what vision we have. But I've played goalball under blindfold for, 30 years.
oh,
And
you relate to me.
yeah, and we learned like count your steps and orientation and put
Yeah,
your blindfold on when you get home and walk around your house. And all of that is great. Like it's really good
yeah,
to be able to play goalball. But when we think about orientation and mobility, I still feel like you still need to use your usable vision. And so there's like
yeah.
this divide between, National Federation
Huge
of the
divide.
Blind for the blind and what I'm used to. So we're kind of stuck in this little middle ground of
And that
having
was my
both.
big problem going
Yeah.
to all these NFB events and having these amazing, outstanding blind mentors that are affiliated with NFB and love them. There's a place for them,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of people learn very differently, but for me, the trauma that I went through of like slowly losing vision, but not even knowing that I was,
Yeah.
and then trying to be blindfolded and learn. And I was like, you know what? Like, I still have vision. It's disorienting for me to put a blindfold on and learn it non-visually. And then when you take it off, I think their philosophy, I understand where they're coming from. But when you have such disorienting vision that's ever changing,
Yeah.
you can teach me a non-visual strategy, and that's awesome. I'm probably going to use it, but I need to know how to use it when I have ever-changing, disorienting vision, when I
Right.
have very like watery red inflammation eyes all the time. It's very different. And I think I understand their model, but it was really hard. The NFB was huge right when I was like 15 to like 22. It's still huge and there's a place for it.
Yeah.
But back then it was like you either like went
Do
to
it our way or don't do it.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like that is not how I did some training through there and almost died
Yeah.
by and so then the taste in my mouth was very much I can't do this um
Mm-hmm.
with someone. And so TJ, it was really interesting to hear you say you wanted the perspective of an individual with a visual impairment teaching you O&M. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's important to know that having both sides is so important because
Right.
you need to feel safe and
Mm-hmm.
cared for. And if you're not going to feel safe with someone that's blind, like, and some people would say that's your own problem, but I think that's just where you're at in your journey.
Right.
And having someone, I mean, the amount of parents that want me versus a sighted TBI is huge.
Yeah.
And because they want that perspective and we crave that. And I think parents crave that.
They
And
they
so,
really
Mm-hmm.
do. I'm in the same position, Mads,
Mm-hmm.
where
yeah,
our business has flourished here and back in the States because of my lived experience, right? And I
yeah,
can tell them, hey, when you're learning to get a job and learning to talk about your accommodations or advocate for yourself or whatever it is that you need to do, here's the steps to be able to get
yeah.
to that place, right? Because I've sat
Having
in
that
those interviews.
knowledge.
Yeah, I've sat in
Yeah.
those interviews. I've had to learn how to talk about myself and feel confident, and then I can talk about the accommodations. But I want someone to know that I'm very capable before they think about my blindness or my low vision. And not
Yep.
everybody has that opportunity.
Yep.
People will walk in with a cane or a guide dog, and they're in a position where they can be immediately boxed in,
Right.
and it's harder, right? Because it's fighting those perceptions of ignorance in mainstream.
Mhm.
As I was watching this Crip Camp, and it's CRIP Camp, I encourage everybody to go and look at it on Netflix and then come back and give us feedback about it because it is a roller coaster, man. It gave me so many emotions watching this documentary. But the big thing is, it's like, it's not actually our problem, it's your problem. It's the mainstream world's problem of not
Mm-hmm.
understanding
Yeah.
about blindness and not understanding about people in a wheelchair, not understanding about cerebral palsy, and it's just
Yeah.
like immediately people think of the worst case scenario and that's how
Right.
they treat everybody, and that has to stop. We are in this whole thing, and we're going to do more podcasts about this because I'm really passionate about it at the moment. But disability rights is going down the toilet in this
Yeah.
country, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to stand up and we need to start talking about it more and fighting more. And for people to talk about the word disability being taken out of the act and it changing, and people's opinion about what people with disability should be doing in the world, that has to change here in the United States. And it's not good enough for people to be ignorant and go back to 1970 when all this happened, and disability
Mm-hmm.
rights was founded. It scares me, to be really honest. And working in
Yeah.
the industry, we have to make a stand about that. And obviously, what you just said, Mads, about having a role where people with blindness and low vision teach others to be better and to get the most out of their lives. We have to just do more of that and talk about it when we do it. So it's really important, I think. We're a little bit short on time, but just before we kind of head out, I'd love to talk about eye irritation, and Mads, you've been through it. I've kind of watched over the last few years and just seen how difficult it's been for you. But are you able to kind of talk to us, in about 5 minutes about your
Yeah.
journey and how you've had to deal with, getting a prosthetic eye and just like the
Yeah.
irritation constantly?
Yeah. It's traumatic. I would say eye irritation is something that people don't talk about. And I live in a beautiful state that is a desert and not realizing how much that also impacts. But I not only have the progressive vision loss, and I also have uveitis, which is inflammation of the eye. And then I've developed, because of living in a desert and putting so many eye drops in and trying to do so many surgeries, I've developed chronic dry eye. And then I wear a contact lens over my eye to be able to see whatever I can. And
Mm-hmm.
just creating so much dryness, I'm not causing my own irritation, which some would think. But it's the day-to-day struggle. I lost an eye from having so many retinal detachments, but so much inflammation of the eye, of where my eye just couldn't take it any longer. And the irritation of trying to not only have eye irritation and go to college and just trying to prove to, honestly, myself and others
Mm-hmm.
that I could have made it through, and I
Yeah,
did. I feel like I'm still like, did I do that? Was that me? Like,
right.
and just the amount I went to classes with bleeding eyes, with bloodshot red eyes, things that were emergent, and I kept going because I didn't want to take the time to go back to the eye care facility for them to tell me that I was just dealing with dry eye.
Right.
Yeah.
And the amount of hours and years that I wasted by going for them to just tell me you're fine, and to go back to class and everyone's looking at me like, you look like your eye's about to pop out of your head, which it did
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
from all of
From
that.
the
And
pressure, right, that goes
yep,
into your eye. And I think like that's the big message, um, that I really want to bring home here is that you have to go and see your eye specialist regularly. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to
Mm-hmm.
go and get a second opinion if you feel
yes.
like it's not, if you're not being told the right thing or a thing.
And
You
start
have to be
tracking
very
your
proactive. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I tracked my eye pressure. I tracked every eye drop I had. I tracked the amount of time that I wasn't sleeping from eye pain. And I still have this to this day in my other eye. And so you would imagine, of the trauma that I dealt with my left eye, and dealing with that with your right eye, trying to not lose that eye, and the amount of like tables and tracking that I've
Mm-hmm.
done and things that I've purchased to help not lose the other eye. But the importance is I'm able to go, and now I have made it very known to my eye care team that you're talking to me of someone that's very educated
Yeah,
in my
Right.
own eyes. I know exactly what's happening. I don't want small talk. I don't want you to say,
Yeah.
looks like your eyes look good today. My
Right.
eye doctors know not to say that because they know I will walk out. And so find someone that you trust, but also
Exactly.
the person that you trust should be someone that understands and
Understands.
respects you and is asking
Hmm.
you, and not everyone has the time or the energy to track everything I did, but to know your own body and explain that and have someone that cares to hear you made all the difference for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And TJ, you do the same thing. Obviously,
I
after
do.
you have your testing done and things and get
Hmm.
injected in the eye. I've seen your eye as
Yeah.
well, just be full of blood and not look so
Hmm.
great. Like process.
Right. Yeah. So each injection is different. And I sometimes in the very beginning of the trial, it would be extremely irritated, very scratchy feeling, be very red. I had a chronic floater there for a little while, just all the different things. So, then like this last time, it was red for about 8 to 10 hours or so, and then it cleared up. So it's all kind of dependent. I will say for me, going to my doctor and people are like, well, why do you go to see a retina specialist? If all they say is nothing we can do, why do you go? Well, for me, when I noticed a change about 3 years ago now, I made an appointment. I'm like, something's different. I mean, yes, I know I'm progressively getting worse, but something has changed. And sure enough, when I went to go see my doctor, they diagnosed Fuchs corneal dystrophy. So I then had a cornea issue on top of
Mhm.
my impeding retinitis
Same
pigmentosa.
girl.
That is something that can, you can
Yeah, you
treat
could work
that
on that.
though.
Yep.
Exactly. So, had I not done anything about it and just, well, there's nothing they
Yeah.
can do, I'm just going blind, then it would have maybe compounded and happened
Yeah.
faster. So for
Yeah.
me, I try to give that advice of stay on top of it, but
Yeah.
also know your disease process, know what your go in armed with
Do
knowledge
your
about what you
research.
have, and that way I have to tell every time I go see my regular eye doctor for my glasses, every year they have someone new doing the test and they want to always do the visual field test, and I'm
Yep.
like, baby, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. You can, and she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I have retinitis pigmentosa. I will sit there and I will not click your little button almost the entire time. Like
I wish
it's a
they were
complete
a
waste
little
of
bit
time.
more educated at
Yeah.
Me too.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
coming from being a teacher of the blind and visually impaired, it's my job to do functional vision assessments on children. And so when I go to the eye doctor and they're like, "Count my fingers." And I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't even know your hand is white. The wall is
The
white.
wall is
Yeah.
white.
I'm not going to be able to. How about you
The
do
bright
this, or
fluorescent
this?
lights on and all the
I'm like
glare is on.
yeah, you turn the lights off and now I can't see you. Like
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
interesting. It's the medical issue of they don't have the time either to
Right.
learn, to educate themselves. But by being, like you said, TJ, to educating them and
Hmm.
arming them with knowledge, I feel like
Hmm.
also makes a difference for them for the next patient.
Exactly.
Yeah, got
Exactly.
to pay it forward, and you've got to put them under the ability to
For
explain.
sure.
I say to parents all
Hmm.
the time, don't be intimidated by an eye specialist. Ask what you need to ask
Yeah.
to
Right.
be informed. It's so important.
Hmm.
And for adults, the same thing. If you haven't seen
Yeah.
your eye doctor in years, go and make an appointment. It's very
Hmm.
important that you get regular checkups. And
Yeah.
before you go and make an appointment, do some research so you can go in
Hmm.
there and ask the questions that the AI is
Yeah.
telling you to ask, or
I have
whatever you
printed
need.
off like information on my eye disease and I have brought it to my
Yep.
appointments.
Same.
Yep. Don't
Yes.
be afraid to
Good. Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Don't just take
Hmm.
what they say as gospel and get a second opinion if you need to, a
Yeah.
third opinion.
Right.
So all those
Hmm.
things are really important. Hey, ladies, I know we have to wrap this up, but really great conversation today. Madeline,
Hmm.
thank you so much. I am so
Yeah.
excited that we were able to get you on to our
Yes.
podcast and for you to tell your story. It's a
Thank
really
you.
unique one, and you have done so well in your career so far and overcoming all these challenges. And so I'm really excited to get that story out as well. Is don't be afraid to
Hmm.
dream.
Yep.
and when you have your come to Jesus moment, be ready for it, and be prepared to change.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so congratulations for all that you've done. It's been
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Yeah. All
Yes.
right. We will be back next week with another episode. Thank you very much. And as always, comment, and give us feedback on what you want us to talk about and what this episode's been for you.
Okay.
TJ, enjoy your
Yep.
wedding.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we will be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.
They told me I can't, so I proved